Influenced by surfing, skateboarding and skiing, snowboarding has rapidly become one of the world's most popular and exhilarating sports. It combines the flowing ride of the surfer, the raw creativity of the skateboarder, and the mounting craft of the skier to give you the ultimate ride. This DVD and accompanying book will help you learn and understand the skills you'll need to safely reach a good standard of riding. From the all-important foundations to the demanding arts of freeriding and freestyle, you'll see professionals demonstrating key techniques every step of the way, showing you how each movement works in graphic detail. You'll learn the natural way to ride, turning your board by design rather than force, as you progress from the fundamentals to the highest levels of the sport. The stance is the cornerstone of snowboarding upon which your technical foundations are built. Based on simple biomechanics, the mechanics of the movement of the body, it's the key to making good progress. Build the stance from your feet up, keeping the rest of your body in a relaxed, upright position. Your stance should allow you to flex freely and create and transfer pressure through your feet to turn the board by manipulating its nose and tail. The width of your stance is very important. You need to find a position that feels strong and comfortable, in which you can create strong, opposing pressure in the outside edges of both feet. This pressure is used to control and steer the front and back of the board. Your stance angles are found by following some rules of biomechanics. Flex your legs and line up your feet with your thighs so that your knee and ankle joints are correctly aligned. For most people, the angle difference between both feet is 20 to 30 degrees, but many riders reduce the angle difference between their feet very slightly. This slight difference between your feet and your thighs naturally creates greater pressure in the outside edges of your feet. Your front foot angle determines how much you can see without having to turn your body. Your rear foot should point slightly back to control pressure towards the rear of the board. Most riders use angles of around -6 degrees on the back foot and +24 on the front. On your board, feel yourself balancing over your feet. Keep your head and shoulders upright, your eye line level, relax your arms, and let your hips align naturally with your feet. Flex your legs slightly with your knees wide apart and your feet flat to the ground. Your stance should never restrict your natural body movements, so try to stay relaxed and comfortable over your feet at all times. Skating and climbing are easy ways of moving uphill and downhill over short distances without taking both feet out of their bindings. Your front foot stays strapped into the board, while your rear foot is used to help you move around. Skating helps balance and steering, and it's a good way of moving around flat terrain. You can skate with your rear foot positioned to either side of your board. Push forwards with your free foot while balancing over your front foot. Let the board glide while bringing your rear foot forwards to repeat the pushing action. On angled terrain, it's normal to skate using the uphill edge of the board, with your free foot on the same side. When climbing, always ascend to the side of the slope, clear of any descending skiers or snowboarders. Take short, easy steps with your rear foot, bringing the board up and back onto its edge to join it each time. So remember, the stance is the foundation from which all further technique is built. Find a position that allows you to flex freely and create opposing pressure in the outside edges of both feet. Riding with your back foot angled slightly back increases pressure control over the rear of the board. Skating and climbing improve your balance. Practice them with your rear foot detached from the board. The basic progression of learning to snowboard starts with straight running, moves on to side slipping, diagonal side slipping and the falling leaf, and finishes with making your first turns. This progression teaches you how to apply the three fundamental elements of snowboard technique: pressure control, edge control, and steering. These elements are central to every task you'll perform on your board, from beginner level to expert level. While running through this basic progression, try to understand how and why each technique works. Remember, each of the steps in this progression is teaching you how snowboarding really works. Straight running introduces the technique required for gliding in a straight line down the slope. Practiced on a gentle gradient, it accustoms you to your stance and introduces the first fundamental element: pressure control. With a partner to help you, align your board with the fall line, keeping your feet and the base of the board flat to the snow, and start to slide. Hold a relaxed basic stance with only your head turned in the direction of travel. Feel for the correct alignment of your joints, with slight pressure working through the outside edges of your feet to control the board. Repeat the exercise, trying to slightly increase the pressure in the outside edge of your front foot each time. Side slipping introduces the second of the fundamental elements: edge control. Edging is the term used to describe controlling the amount of edge tilt applied to the board. Side slipping uses a combination of pressure and edging and allows you to control your speed and stop on a slope by skidding. Start with your board across the slope. Find your balance over your working edge, that's the edge you're using to control the board, by spreading the pressure outwards along the length of the board using the outside edges of both feet. Keep your body relaxed and flexed with your weight centered. Slowly and smoothly lessen the amount of edge tilt, allowing your board to slide down the hill. Extend your body slightly to keep your center of gravity balanced over the working edge. Maintain a relaxed stance, keeping constant pressure along the length of the board throughout. Increase the edge tilt again, flexing for balance until you return to the stationary starting position. Repeat the exercise on both edges, feeling for the natural link between the edge tilt and the flexion-extension movements of the body. Aim to make your movements smooth, controlled, and coordinated. The diagonal side slip encourages pressure control within the side slip by introducing a pressure bias towards either the nose or tail of the board, which induces a diagonal line of travel. Start from a stationary position with your board across the slope. Release the working edge of the board, extending your body for balance, with even pressure on your front and back feet. Slowly increase the pressure towards the outside edge of your front foot, while keeping the amount of edge tilt even through both feet. Maintain a lesser opposing pressure in your rear foot to control the direction and strength of the pressure bias in your front foot. Release the edge evenly through both feet. Your board should remain across the slope, but the pressure movement should have started to induce a diagonal line of travel to your skid. Feel for the pressure control through your rear foot, which should work in opposition as you slowly increase or decrease the pressure in your front foot as required. Move only enough pressure to achieve the task. Slowly bring the pressure back to an even balance on your front and back feet while increasing the edge tilt, returning to your starting position. Stay relaxed and flex accordingly. Practice the exercise in both directions and on both your toe and heel edge to develop your accuracy and understanding of pressure and edge control before moving on to the next step. The falling leaf exercise takes its name from the path you take down the hill and introduces the final fundamental element to the basic progression. Steering is added to pressure control and edge control. In this exercise, you'll practice the turn initiation process and build the foundations for more advanced riding. From a controlled side slip, create a pressure bias in your front foot, as for the diagonal side slip, keeping your speed to a minimum. You're now ready to add the steering element. Slowly move the pressure bias with your front foot from the heel edge across the board, directing the pressure towards the toe edge. Maintain strong heel edge pressure in the rear half of the board by working your rear foot in opposition. As you drive the pressure towards the toe edge, you'll torsionally flex the board, causing the nose to steer slightly down the slope. Your front foot should feel almost as if it's pushing down on a pedal, while your rear foot works against it. This pedaling motion is essential for steering technique. Steer in this way until the board begins to turn slightly, slowly running across the slope. Gradually bring the pressure back to your heel edge before returning to the side slip and starting position. Practice the exercise in both directions and on both your toe and heel edge. The garland is the practice phase of the basic progression, as you've now learnt all three elements of the turn. The garland is simply the falling leaf repeated over and over again in a front foot forwards only direction, with the emphasis placed on increasing the amount of steering used each time. From a stationary relaxed position, release the edge to induce a side slip before creating a pressure bias to the front of the board. Roll the pressure bias around the front of the board using the outside of your front foot, steering towards the fall line. Don't turn your hip or shoulders unnecessarily. Feel for the front of the board to flatten and extend for balance. Feel strong pressure through your front foot. Slowly steer back across the slope and try to feel the progression working in reverse. Steering is increased until the board is turning into the fall line, with the front of the board flat to the slope. Practice the exercise from both the heel and toe side starting positions. The turn is the final task in the basic progression and adds the edge change to the equation. The edge change is the most important element of the turn. Using the technical progression we've followed so far, you should be able to understand and master the edge change quickly and easily, creating effortless arcs simply by manipulating and controlling the board with your feet, turning by design rather than by force. Start from a relaxed, stationary position across the hill and run through the progression from side slip to diagonal side slip to set the foundations for the steering phase of the turn. With your front foot, move the pressure bias from the toe edge of the board towards the heel edge, steering towards the fall line. Feel for the front of the board going flat to the slope, pressing your front foot out against the binding, with your rear foot in opposition. Move the pressure slowly and confidently to the new edge, all the while exerting opposing pressure with your rear foot. The front of the board will now begin to change edge. As you feel the pressure from your front foot and your center of gravity move over the new edge, allow the rear foot to follow onto the new edge. Spread the pressure out along the heel edge of the board, steering across the slope to finish the turn. Follow your feet and remember to turn the board by design, not force. When you get it right, it will feel effortless. The heel to toe edge turn follows the same progression, using pressure and pedaling through the front foot to steer the board from the heel edge towards the fall line. As the front of the board flattens to the slope, the steering continues towards the toe edge, driving the board around and across the slope to complete the turn. You now have all the ingredients needed to ride your board around the mountain. From this point on, you simply need to further your understanding of the fundamental elements, practicing and refining them to suit the various situations that arise while riding. The movements needed for snowboarding are very small but very specific. Focus only on what is essential and cut out any unnecessary movement. Stay relaxed and your body will balance itself, leaving you able to concentrate on your feet and their manipulation of the board. So remember, there are three fundamental elements of snowboard technique: edge control, pressure control, and steering. Practice straight running to become accustomed to your stance and to develop your feel for pressure control. When side-slipping, use a combination of pressure and edging to control your speed. Practice the falling leaf exercise to develop your steering. When turning from one edge to the other, remember to transfer pressure to the new edge gradually whilst maintaining opposing pressure in your rear foot. Refining the technique of the basic turn to create a higher level of riding is about developing your use of pressure, edging and steering. It's important to understand that from here on in there are no extra techniques to learn. You just refine the use of those you've already learnt. In the basic progression, pressure has played a key role every step of the way, aiding edge control and steering. Here, as we move on to higher levels of riding, pressure will become the key element with which to manipulate the board so that it continues to be turned by design rather than force. The McNabb pressure control system introduces you to the 4 control points of your board and the natural sequence with which they're used in each turn. As you link your basic turns together, start to look at which parts of the board you're using to initiate and complete your turns. You should become aware of the 4 control points of the board, which, when used correctly, are used to accomplish each turn. A is the rear foot control point on the toe edge. B is the front foot control point on the toe edge. C is the front foot control point on the heel edge. And D is the rear foot control point on the heel edge. With these points in mind, practice some more turns, focusing on how each control point is used and the role it plays in turning the board. For the toe to heel turn, therefore, the control points are used in the sequence A, B, C, and D. Pressure to A at the rear of the board is used to prepare the pressure transfer to B at the front of the board. From B, the pressure is moved through steering towards C. As the edge change takes place, C steers the turn and opposing pressure is moved to D. As the turn is completed, D is the last control point in the turn. For the heel to toe turn, the sequence runs D, C, B to A. Make some turns and notice this sequence as you ride. To refine your turning technique, you need to first concentrate on how you use these 4 points and then increase your ability to use them. Understanding these 4 control points is key to making the board turn by design rather than force. A useful exercise is to point your fingers at each point in turn as it's used. This increases your awareness of the 4 control points as you ride. Use your rear hand to point at the rear control points and your front hand to point at the front points. Start with a toe to heel turn. Use control point A and point at A as you do it. Use B while pointing at B, and so on. Try to exaggerate your movements and work the sequence A, B, C, D. Follow this with a heel to toe turn using D, C, B, and A. Now we're going to use pointing to illustrate how 2 control points are used at the same time to create opposing pressure. Remember, to create pressure, you need 2 points working in opposition to each other. For example, to move pressure to control point B, you also use control point A. So in this exercise, you point your rear hand to A and your front hand to B. When you steer pressure towards C, point A works in opposition, so you'll be pointing at A and C. As the edge is changed, the opposing pressure creating the steering on C moves to D. A toe-to-heel turn, therefore, goes like this. A and B to create the pressure bias at B. A and C for steering to C. D and C to maintain steering pressure on C and D. By pointing to highlight the pressure working through your feet, you should begin to get a clearer picture of how the board can be manipulated to make turns. The next exercise to attempt focuses attention on your feet. Make the same turns as before, but this time with your hands on your knees. As your feet work the control points on the board, your knees will mirror the movements of your feet, and your hands will move as a result. Try exaggerating the movements of your feet by using your hands on your knees to help drive the board. Really work the opposing control points and make your movements as precise as possible. In order to help foot steering and prevent upper body rotation, the next exercise involves holding control point B. You cannot steer effectively unless you prepare well beforehand. In the A, B, C, D sequence, the pressure bias to B makes it possible to steer to C. Transferring pressure straight from A to C is a common mistake that creates an exaggerated initiation phase. This results in an over-rotated turn initiation. In order to make your steering more effective, practice this quick exercise. When turning, begin by holding pressure at point B for a count of 3. This will allow you to steer very precisely to point C. To further enhance the precision of the edge change, try slowing down the steering movement from B to C. Try not to rotate your upper body into the turns. Follow your feet, staying relaxed and neutral. Extend and flex your body for balance. To recap on how to use the control points and to gauge your progress, try some of these exercises with your front foot at the back and your back foot at the front. This is called riding fakie or switch. Remember to use all the new skills you've practiced. Keep your upper body neutral, turning only your head in the direction of travel. To tighten the radius of the turn, the board must be flexed strongly into a tighter arc. This means stronger pressure is needed between A to B for steering at control point C. The funnel method uses this theory to slowly tighten the arc of the turn by speeding up the pressure movement between A and B during a turn. As well as creating more pressure for steering, it also reduces the distance between turns so they become tighter and closer together. During a toe-to-heel turn, start with a count of 3 between A and B, or D to C for the heel-to-toe turn. In the next turn, reduce the count to 2 and then to 1. Finally, make the movement continuous from the end of one turn into the start of the next. The path you've taken should resemble the shape of a funnel. Control your speed by the line you take and don't lose control. Finish your turns off across the slope. And remember, short, quick turns aren't necessarily high-speed turns. The next exercise to attempt involves making a series of short radius turns using a narrow corridor of the slope. Here, you move straight into a powerful and dynamic pressure movement from A to B to create strong steering at C. This creates a short, tight arc. Strong opposing pressure at D is needed to keep the steering at C, which makes the arc tight. The pattern then repeats the other way. Try to make your movements smooth and controlled. So remember, Use the McNab pressure control system to develop your use of pressure, edging and steering. Point at the control points as you use them to develop your awareness for how you apply pressure through